As if on cue, you're coughing. It's okay. I had to put in eye drops in the middle of a show the other day and couldn't
No,
stop
no.
coughing. So chat was
I
having
dropped
fun with
I
me.
dropped help with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we are. We are live. It's Sunday morning. I'm with Adam Ship, my money shower. Of course, it is your old pal Emac, and we're bringing to you the MLB DFS strategy show slash live before lock because we are the MLB content for today. Adam, you look like you're traveling abroad once again. What's going on?
Yeah, in Miami, hanging out at the FanDuel event that was yesterday. Stayed an extra day as usual, so still
All
in
right.
Miami.
Are you have you thought about rebooking your flight yet?
Actually, I can't. I actually have to take my mom to a doctor's appointment on Tuesday, so I have to be home.
All right. Well, there you are. Yeah, I've got right as soon as we're done, I'm racing off to Dulles Airport to pick up my wife. Shout out to her finishing half marathon number 99 in Kansas, and she has I think 39 of the 50 states, and half marathon 100 will be in May up there in Martha's Vineyard. So there we are. Good times. All right, let's roll through this here. Call up some stuff. We do have one postponed game already. That would be the Chicago Cubs because snow. So that's always fun for baseball. And we've got what was the other weather issue here? Not to forget that St. Louis and Cincinnati are playing in Monterrey, Mexico. That is at 1,700 feet elevation, and it is about 2 hours due west of Brownsville, Texas. So I had to get it and look at a map, Adam, to figure out where it was because I wanted to see if it was by the coast. Not really. Not really. It's about 150 miles away. But that looks like about all we have to worry about there for the weather. Pitching's going to be interesting today. We have some spendy guys, and we have some offenses that we're going to want to target. So let's just dive right in here, Adam, with your Baltimore Orioles going against David Price and the Boston Red Sox. We have John Means, who is going to be starting the game here. He is at 4,300 on DraftKings. He might go as many as 3 innings. I believe I saw something that said he'd go about 50 pitches. But that's a tough matchup for him against Boston. On the other side, we don't yet have the Boston lineup yet, but tasty matchup here against a relatively decimated Baltimore Orioles bullpen. And for the second day in a row, the Red Sox are carrying a non-Coors Field 6 implied run total. Adam, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a good spot for Boston bats here. Means is not anything special. He does have a good changeup, at least as far as getting swings and misses go. So if the Red Sox were to fail against Means, that would probably be the reason why. He has a 25% swinging strike percentage on it to right-handed hitters this year, but it has also gotten hit hard when they make contact, and overall he hasn't been effective. And then on top of that, like you said, he's not. It's not like he's going 7 innings. Even if he's pitching well, you're going to get into the Baltimore bullpen early, and that's a really fun place to be. So another day where Boston didn't really come through yesterday, but another day to go right back to them.
All right. And then Baltimore, of all teams, had a nice little day. Props to Chris Davis, who broke his hitless streak. I don't know if you saw it, but he asked for the ball after he
Yeah,
got a
yeah,
hit.
I
So,
did see that.
yeah, good for him. That's just got to weigh on your psyche to have something like
Yeah,
that with all eyes on you, especially because you can't even laugh all the way to the bank because it just becomes that much. I don't know what the right word is.
yeah.
Embarrassing.
I'm expecting him to go on a bit of a hot streak here, just because he actually has been hitting the ball hard for the last week and a half. He's been hitting it the other way, which is normally something that's a really good sign for him. And then now, obviously, you have a lot of the pressure lifted. So I'm actually expecting Davis to be pretty productive, at least in the short term.
Would you consider playing him today? Lefty lefty matchup. He's batting. Looks like seventh, but he's 7 on FanDuel or Yahoo, 42 on Fantasy Draft, 21 on DK, and 500 still on.
I mean, I doubt that I get a lot of him. It's still, a hitter in the lineup at 2100s. There's some appeal there, but I had a lot of him yesterday, partly intentional and partly by accident. But I don't expect to have as much today, obviously, against Price.
All right. Anything else from this game?
I mean, we can go right back to Trey Mancini. The guy is just hitting really, really well. It's a nice park for right-handed power. I don't think David Price is particularly good anymore. I don't think he's bad, but I think that there's upside there for Mancini. If you need a cheap guy like Joey Rickards, 3,400, but I would look to find other guys first.
All right, fair enough. On to our next game here. We've got the Chicago White Sox at the New York Yankees. This one is, let's get the weather up. It is going to be close to 70 degrees at first pitch. We have a slight cross breeze of 6 to 8 miles an hour going from first base to third base. And you've got Masahiro Tanaka taking on Carlos Rodon. And wow, the White Sox have just a 3.8 implied run total. On the other side, the Yankees are carrying a 5.4. Starting off with the Yankees here, they've got DJ LeMahieu batting first. Judge, Torres, Voit, Frazier, Gardner dropping down to sixth in this lefty-lefty matchup. And then kind of their understudies, shall we say, at 7, 8, 9 with Ursula Higashioka. My apologies, Kyle. And then Mike Tauchman. What do you like here from the Yankees? They're going to be one of our popular offenses against Rodon, who we do know has some electric stuff if it can come within, a couple feet of the strike zone.
Yeah, I'm interested in both sides here, but the thing to point out with the Yankees, I think, is that on DraftKings, they are really cheap. So that makes them even more appealing on top of obviously them being a high upside offense. I think DJ LeMahieu, especially as a cash play, makes sense at only $3,900 with multi-position eligibility. Judge is less than $5K against the lefty. Torres is cheap. Voit, Frazier, they're all reasonably priced. So there's certainly appeal there. But on the other side, Rodon's been throwing his sliders so far this season about 41% of the time to right-handed hitters. It's a really, really good pitch. So far, a 23.4% swinging strike percentage, an expected WOBA of 113, and absolutely no power allowed. So he has that pitch, that he can use to get swings and misses. And then on top of that, once you get past Clint Frazier, the 5-hitter in this lineup, you have the lefty-lefty matchup with Gardner. You have Gio Urshela. You have Higashioka, and then you have Mike Tauchman. Like, none of those guys are scary for Rodon. So if he can just navigate his way through those top 5, then he could have, a pretty nice start. And he definitely has the stuff to do it. So he's reasonably priced, and he works as a leverage play because I do expect the Yankees to have plenty of ownership. So I do like Rodon also.
All right. Just for fun, I read this list off yesterday, but here's the Yankees offensive players that are out of action right now: Giancarlo Stanton, Gary Sanchez, Aaron Hicks, Didi Gregorius, Troy Tulowitzki, Jacoby Ellsbury, and Miguel Andujar. You can make a really good lineup of all the guys that aren't in the lineup. It's an impressive cast of characters there. Looking to go against Tanaka, we do know that he on occasion does have some home run. I don't want to say really troubles. He's kind of like Max Scherzer light in that he does a fair amount of challenging the batters. And you know what? When you do that, occasionally something's going to be left over the plate and somebody can get a hold of it. We have Yonder Alonso, Jose Abreu, and your guy, well, at least your guy from last year, Yohan Moncada, at 2-3-4 here. Do you like these guys as a mini stack?
Yeah, or as one-offs. I really like Tanaka as a pitcher, so I'm interested in him, obviously, with the strikeout upside he has in the spot. But, in Yankee Stadium, you have left-handed power in Yohan Moncada and Yonder Alonso. Both of those guys, I think, are reasonable options. Jose Abreu at 3,900 is basically always a play at that price point. So, yeah, you can get to those guys for power upside, especially because I assume Tanaka has a pretty decent amount of ownership as well.
All right. Anything else you'd like to touch on from this game?
Nope.
All right. We've got our next one here. This is Tampa Bay at Toronto. Should be an interesting one here. You've got Marcus Stroman going for Toronto, and you've got Charlie Morton there on the other side going against a lineup that has not really put things together for Toronto. We do have their lineup, and it's going to be McKinney leading off with Galvis, Smoke, Grichuk, Rowdy Tellez, Lourdes Gurriel, Brito, Drury, and Jansen. I don't hate those guys as lineup filler, but going against Charlie Morton, not a guy that gives up a ton of power, and I don't know that our buddies here from Toronto can do much about it. On the other side, you've got the Tampa Bay Rays, Adam, who have been sneaky effective with a bunch of, well, shall we say, less than household names. You've got, I mean, in the last week, you've seen Austin Meadows have a 2 home run game. Brandon Lowe has. Ji-Min Choi always, of course, has power in lefty-righty matchups. Avisel Garcia is just fine in righty-righty matchups. He's batting cleanup today. And then Yandy Diaz has a bit of the boomstick there himself. What do you want to do with this matchup? Because it feels like all Rays all the time, and I'm not really that interested in Toronto.
Yeah, I'm interested in the pitching in this game.
Okay.
Obviously Morton in a really good spot against Toronto. Not that it's not a spot than Tanaka has against Chicago or Price has against Baltimore, but Morton's just a good pitcher that's facing a pretty weak lineup. So certainly someone that I'll be looking to get some exposure to. But on the other side, on DraftKings, where you need the two pitchers, you have Marcus Stroman at 6,800 against what has been a pretty sneakily good Tampa offense, like you said. But there are strikeouts in this lineup. Stroman has always been a good real life pitcher. It's just a matter of converting it into fantasy points. And he is getting, a pretty healthy amount of swings and misses this season. He's throwing his slider a ton, 40% to hitters from both sides of the plate, which is really good to see because that's a pitch that does get swings and misses, and he's throwing it a bit more, especially to lefties. He's upped his usage of that pitch from about 24% last season to 40% this season, and it's caused his swinging strike percentage to go from 8.4% overall to about 12%. So there is more strikeout upside for Stroman than we've seen from him in the past. And even when he's not getting strikeouts, he is good at getting ground balls and just limiting production against him. So $32 on Yahoo is a bit more expensive than I would want, especially relative to some other pitchers. But 68 on DraftKings is pretty nice.
All right. That you're absolutely right when it comes down to pricing. And that was something we had a lot of discussion on yesterday because I was, and it worked out. This stuff doesn't always work out, but I lucked into a fantastic start there from Homer Bailey. And my main reason for going to him, Adam, was just that I needed a discounted second pitcher that would allow me to get the SP1s that I wanted, along with, stacks that included 2 through 5 hitters and not 6, 7, 8 hitters. From that standpoint, it worked out. But are you feeling that Stroman? What would you think kind of a baseline acceptable game from him would be? A realistic outcome, more or less, perhaps a quality start, 6 innings, 3 runs, couple strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean 6 innings, 2 runs, 5 Ks, something along those lines.
Okay. Anything else from our last 1 p.m.? Oh no, we have one more 1 p.m. game. Moving along here, we have the Philadelphia Phillies in Miami. I do believe the roof is closed. I tried to find that information last night.
It's open.
Oh, it is open?
I think so.
Okay, but I was going to say, it was a nice day in Miami, so I would figure if they're going to do it, they might as well do it in the spring. So you'll want to remember, for those of you that are relatively new to DFS baseball, that actually kind of turns Miami from being more of a pitcher's park into more or less park neutral. And then depending on whatever the humidity is, that just increases things as well. We have right-hander Jose Urena going against the Phillies. That is not the best matchup. On the other side, you have Vincent Velasquez, who gets the nice matchup going against the Miami Marlins, who are carrying a not a lot of green, shall we say, in the various numbers that we'd like to see with regards to walk rate, strikeout percentage, WOBA, isolated power, fly balls, etc. Let's start off with Vasquez. Where is he fitting in your plans today?
I like him. I wish that the slate weren't so loaded at the top with pitching because I don't know that I can really prioritize him or that I really put him ahead of guys like Tanaka. I think he's again in that same boat to where I'll pay a lot of attention to ownership and kind of let that dictate things. This Miami offense is awful. Like went to their game on Friday and I've never been so bored at a baseball game in my life. It was just like watching. It was the worst like baseball I've ever seen. They're just so bad. The one thing that you can say, against Velasquez is that in theory, these Miami hitters generally put the ball in play, but Velasquez has good enough stuff that I'm not really even that concerned about that. I would put him behind Tanaka. I'd put him behind Morton, but I don't feel really strongly one way or the other.
All right. On the other side here, looking at Jose Urena, not really interested in him as a pitcher. He's pretty effective against fellow righties. He has almost a 50% ground ball rate looking back across the last season and a half, or almost 2 seasons here. And he's got, respectable hard hit rate, not sterling by any stretch, but not a lot of strikeouts. 18% combined strikeout rate with 16% to lefties, and let's see, where'd that go? 16% to lefties, 21% to righties. I think we're going to lean towards the Phillies here, Adam. Harper and Hoskins are just going to be a fantastic duo all season because they are both outstanding against both lefties and righties. Talk to me here about the Phillies.
I like him, and I think that assuming the roof is open, which again is what I'm seeing, I haven't like confirmed it, but I think it's open. I don't know why it wouldn't be. It's like 85, 87 degrees here, so I think that it's kind of a sneaky good spot for them because I do respect Urena, or at least his ability to limit damage in that park, but it does make the park a better place to hit when you get the heat and not the roof closed. And then this is just a really good lineup. Especially 1 through 4, McCutchen through Hoskins, but then you also get Herrera, you get Hernandez at a cheap price at second base. I think it's just a spot that people maybe stay away from because the Phillies only have a 4.8 implied run total as opposed to the Red Sox at 6 or the Yankees at 5.5. So it's a really high upside spot where they aren't the highest projected team on the slate, which should keep their ownership down.
All right, I am looking at so everything always refers you to the Twitter at Marlins Park to find out if the roof is open or closed, and I swear they do their best to not ever be clear about if it is or if it isn't. Which is just crazy to me. It should be rather simple to find this stuff out. But in any event, you guys keep an eye on that. If anybody is aware of the status, please do drop it into chat and let us know. Reminder, if you guys have not yet signed up for OSMA, we have all sorts of goodness behind the paywall. You can check us out using promo code MLB Strategy to get 50% off any 1 month package. Additionally, if you want, try us out for a week. We've got week-long packages as well. We've had some fantastic success here on the single day contest for golf as well as weekend golf. We've got about the only playoff hockey content from your favorite sites out there. You get that. You've got projections for pretty much every sport, including MMA, NASCAR, etc., and then ownership projections for literally every sport out there. So it is a lot of fun here. Jump on in, and you get the premium Slack, which is the crown jewel of everything. Anything else you want to discuss here, Adam?
Nope.
All right, let's head on to our next.
Brian Anderson is $2,900 on DraftKings.
Oh, that's a nice price.
Not saying that it's like it's like a great play or anything, but $2,900 batting second.
That is good call out there. We just had another ownership update, so I'm gonna look at that, and then we've got another projection update here because lineups keep coming in, so I'm gonna get that loaded. In the meantime, here, top pitcher on the slate, you have the Pittsburgh Pirates going against the Washington Nationals. You have Maximilian Scherzer here taking the mound. He is, well, one of the best pitchers in the game. Not much else to say about that, except he is going to be spendy today. We will be paying a premium, as is appropriate. We know that the Pittsburgh Pirates strike out a little bit more this year than we are used to seeing. However, they are still below league average, but this is one of the best strikeout pitchers in the game. In Scherzer, what do you like about this one? How much Scherzer are you going to get to, do you think, today?
Yeah, I mean, I've been crunched lineup, so I'm not sure where I'll end up, but my plan would be to get him into whatever lineups I can, but there's such a talented, like upper mid range that I'm not going to be forcing him in, especially in tournaments. I do think it's also a bit site dependent. On DraftKings, he's only like 10 to 15% more expensive than that like other tier of guys, but on FanDuel you have him at 11.5, and everyone else is a little bit, Morton at 9.2, so a little bit bigger price difference. On Yahoo, he's $60, and you have other guys at like 44 for Tanaka, 48 for Barrios. So you have a little bit just bigger gap in terms of percentage discount. So I think he's a more appealing play on DraftKings than any other site.
All right. Is there anybody at all that you would be interested in from, or let me rephrase that, not even interested in? Is there anybody you wouldn't be excluding against Scherzer? Does anybody make it as if you get if it makes my lineup work, I'll take Colin Moran and maybe he'll hit a home run kind of guy here?
Yeah, I'm not only exclude anyone, but to what I think you were asking. Like, it would be the lefties like Moran, Frazier, Bell, but again, it's not like I'm endorsing them.
All right. Thank you for recovering my poorly phrased question there. On the other side, we have.
I wasn't even trying to correct you. I just wanted to cover myself in case I have a lineup with a pirate in it.
Oh yeah. No, it was a poorly worded question. So, like a gimme on that one, or a do over. But the other side, we have Jameson Taillon, and he has been. I don't know what the right word is. Improving. He is still lining up as at the moment a better quote real life pitcher than a fantasy pitcher, but it's trending in the right direction here, and that all comes down to what is he going to do with his strikeouts. And right now he has about a 22% strikeout rate going across his last 850 batters faced. He is striking out 20% of lefties and 25% of righties. He is reasonably good with the ground balls. Very, very low walk rate at 6.5% across that 850 batters. So he's someone that that doesn't necessarily get blown up. It isn't going to dazzle you with the DFS perspective because we know strikeouts are the currency of the realm here. What do you like with the Nationals? I think Soto, Rendon, and then potentially. God, I'm gonna say Howie Kendrick. Let's look at his prices: 28 on DK, 38 on pardon me, 38 on DK, 28 on FanDuel, and 14 on Yahoo. A little more expensive, but batting second, he should see 5 at bats today.
Yeah, I mean it's whatever. I prefer lefties against Taillon. He benefits from pitching at home, and he's really good against righties. Obviously, this game is on the road, but there are 6 righties in the lineup for Washington, so I'm not super excited about the Nats. I do think that just going to the really good hitters, Rendon is good enough that I don't care about the splits, and Soto obviously has the platoon advantage, is fine. And Zimmerman is actually cheap for the upside that he brings us. So 3 through 5 is where I would look to go to from Washington, but they're still not a priority for me just because I do respect Taillon as a pitcher. I don't really see the need to roster Taillon in a tough spot here just because there are so many pitching options on the slate. If I ended up, if I have a lineup I really like and I end up with like 8,300 on DraftKings at pitcher, then I wouldn't blow up my lineup to avoid Taillon, but he's not someone that I'm like seeking out.
All right. Chat would like you to know they feel that you look like Justin Timberlake's long lost brother.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think they're used to seeing you in a hat, so the hair, similar facial structure. Yeah, okay, I can see if you squint. If you squint, you can get there, and I'm sure the ladies, if they've had about 15 drinks, can get there as well. All right, we're gonna head on into our 2:00 games. A couple of sites do have a 2-game turbo slate here. We have the Detroit Tigers in Minnesota. The Tigers will be going against Jose Berrios, and we've got Jordan Zimmerman, 2 ends, mind you. Did you know there's a Jordan Zimmerman who is a hitter that is in the league now, 1 end? And there was also, previous to this Jordan Zimmerman, another Jordan Zimmerman who was a pitcher. What is it with Jordan Zimmerman?
I do know that because you found that out while we were doing a podcast together.
Oh, that's right. I couldn't remember if I was with you or with Jake when I found that one. But what do we got here? I mean, intriguing matchup on both sides. Let's see. It's been pretty cold up there. Let's check out the weather because it is going to be 41 at first pitch. You have a 3-run implied total here for Detroit. On the other side, you've got Minnesota carrying a 4.6 implied run total. I know you generally have some thoughts about Jordan Zimmerman at 6,400 today. Is he in the mix as an SP2?
Not one that I'm happy about. There's a lot of lefties in this Minnesota lineup. I do respect the lineup. Not a lot of strikeouts either. Like Kepler, Polanco, Rosario are all difficult strikeouts. Gonzalez manages to put the ball in play a reasonable amount, and then you have power from Nelson Cruz, CJ Cron. So it's just not the most appealing spot. Like I would much rather get to Marcus Stroman, even though I respect Tampa Bay's lineup as well. I just think Stroman's a lot better pitcher than Zimmerman. So yeah, I mean, you can certainly make the argument that he's just a cheap pitcher, and that's fine. Like I'm not going to talk you off him for that reason, but there's nothing about the matchup that makes me like Zimmerman.
All right, on the the other hand here, you've got Barrios, who has a 25% strikeout rate across his last 900 batters faced. That is pretty good. Sub 300 WOBA to both sides of the plate, 160 ISO to lefties, 140 to righties. This lineup here for Detroit, not exactly going to be scaring anyone. Candelario leading off, Miguel Cabrera batting second, Christian Stewart getting the promotion up to third, and John Hicks batting cleanup. That's what I want, a righty catcher batting cleanup, but he is 3,100 on DraftKings, so I do want to point that out. That's a nice way to fill your catcher slot with someone batting in an excellent spot in the lineup, even though it is a difficult matchup. He's also the minimum price of 7 over there on Yahoo. Is there anybody that stands out going against Barrios here?
No, not against him, but I love Barrios.
Okay. Compare him to Scherzer once more for people that are trickling into the show with regards to pricing.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough on DraftKings. Like, he's 9,900, Scherzer's 10,700. Scherzer's just the better pitcher, but I still like Barrios there. It's just that, if I can, I would get to Scherzer. But on, Yahoo, you have Barrios at $48. You have Scherzer at 60. I think that's a pretty nice, difference. On FanDuel, I think it's like 11.5 to 10K maybe. Yeah, Barrios 10K, Scherzer 11.5. So again, that's $1,500 that you can work with there. So I obviously have him behind Scherzer if you can get to Scherzer, but I have Barrios ahead of the whole Tanaka, Price, Morton, Velasquez group of guys.
Okay, good comparisons there. Continuing along, we have Cleveland at Kansas City. Jake Junis going against Cleveland. Corey Kluber going against Kansas City here. Kluber is, a phenomenal pitcher, but we do have things a little bit crowded up at the top. Let's start off with here, comparing him with the other guys. I still like the Barrios and Scherzer better, but it looks like his popularity puts him in the conversation as being a pivot off of those guys on DK.
Yeah, the DK price is, I'm not looking, but I'm assuming one of the cheapest we've gotten on Kluber in years. So it's certainly appealing. It's another, ace in that range of guys. Getting him for $1,200 less than Scherzer is pretty appealing. Kansas City, not the most potent offense. They have, some good hitters at the top with Merrifield and Mondesi. Gordon can be a pain. Soler has some power, but really not a scary lineup for them. So Kluber's another one I like. Like, I would put Kluber ahead of Tanaka, Morton, and Velasquez. I think that it's really comparable to Barrios.
All right. Ryan O'Hearn, kind of the only guy really standing out as a batter here. This is similar to, Pittsburgh going against Scherzer, etc. Do you have any intriguing comments you want to point out here for the Royals?
Adalberto Mondesi's really good, but it's like nothing that I really want to play.
He's not the best analyst in the business for nothing, folks. Let's see. Continuing to the other side here, Jake Junis improving over the last calendar year. Had a rough start to last season. He's been noted for his home runs allowed, but he's been having more, shall we say, consistent moments here. The Cleveland team is nowhere near what the Cleveland team was last year. We Lindor's on the shelf, Kipnis is on the shelf, Brantley's not with he's not with the team anymore. Yonder Alonso's not with the team anymore, and Edwin Encarnacion also away. So literally half their lineup is not here. They're leading off with Leonis Martin. You've got Jose Ramirez, who's been mucking around a little bit, considering he's a fringe MVP candidate. Well, and he's got third in the voting the last 2 years, but he's 13 now on Yahoo. He's 84 on Fantasy Draft, 41 on DK, and 34 on FanDuel. That's a very intriguing price point. You have Carlos Gonzalez batting second. As long as he's healthy, there's a chance he can run into one, even though he's not in Coors Field. And then Santana and Tyler Naquin, Jake Bauers. It's not the worst lineup, but everybody getting the platoon advantage today. They're running out Perez and Stamets are their only two righties in the lineup. That makes it a little tough for me to like Eunice in this one. I'm not doing cartwheels to get to Cleveland, but some of their pricing is going to make them an attractive filler options or secondary stack.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. It's not the most dangerous matchup from a power upside standpoint for Junis. Ramirez obviously is the best hitter in the lineup, but he's off to a really bad start this year. Even if you look at his expected stats, which are better than his actual ones, he still has an expected WOBA below 300 and expected ISO below 200 to start the year. And if you go back last season and look at his numbers against right-handed sliders, even though he had a phenomenal year, he did not hit for much power in that regard at all. And that's what Junis is going to rely on. So it's not I do like the price tag on Ramirez, like you said, but I'm just saying that it's not like a spot that grades out as well as some other spots would for Ramirez. But I also will have trouble getting to Junis just because of how many lefties there are in this lineup. He still gets swings and misses on that slider, but you prefer him to have the platoon advantage. And the price tags on these Indians hitters are just really, really inexpensive on a slate where we have a lot of pitching. Like if I can get, two of those good pitchers that we've talked about in like the 9K plus range, and then get, this cheap Indian stack against a pitcher who gives up a ton of home runs and a bullpen that's not very good, that, it might not come through all that often, but it certainly gives you a ton of upside.
All right. I think they're liking our abbreviated distilled get to the point show here on Sunday. They're comparing us to the Josh combos. Josh and I actually did a show an hour and 20 minutes. I looked at the clock when we were done. I was like, oh my God, it didn't feel like that long, but it really adds up. You and I, when we do stuff, we get to the point, don't screw around as much. And that's it. I stand back, let you do the heavy lifting here, because that's what the people want to see. Is the one ship my money here.
So long story short, you guys are welcome for taking Josh's spot today.
There you go. We're going to have plenty of time. Heck, you guys can set your lineups and make it to church. Okay, maybe that's not the goal everybody wanted, but nonetheless, it should be a good one here. Let's see. I guess we do just have one game left. But I've got some thoughts on the 4:00 games real quick, but we'll highlight those. But let's go to Oakland and Texas. That game was postponed yesterday. That was one of the ones where, just from a DFS strategy standpoint, it didn't look great. There's no reason for these teams to force in a game, particularly when they knew they would be fine today. And I heard some people talking, well, maybe they'll do a doubleheader today. Generally, we don't see doubleheaders in the first 6 weeks of the season, because pitchers aren't fully stretched out, even if you were to use your 26th man that you get when there's a doubleheader to call up another pitcher. Now, minor league guys, they're not really stretched out either. It becomes more of a pain. So the only time you'll see it is if the team's not coming back through that city. Now, we know that Oakland and Texas are going to play multiple times this season, so there's plenty of time to make it up. They rescheduled this one for June, but there was a few people complaining on in Slack and on Twitter, just saying, "Oh, I can't believe this was canceled." There are varying degrees of rain risk. Last night was a pretty good one. We'll get more spring storms here in the East Coast, as long as it's not a massive one. I'm willing to take the risk more often than not, if it's there might be a delay, or there might be a postponement. But as long as it looks like there's a window to get something in, I'm willing to accept that, because it keeps other people off the game. And you know what? If it does get rained out, which it will happen a few times a year, you'll get caught up in those. Just think of it as your team getting no hit and move on. It's not the end of the world, because we still have another 200 viable slates with all these split slates and 160 days left in the season here. So just don't get caught up and get mad. Baseball is a grind, but last night was the one you probably shouldn't have taken a chance. But I can't wait till we have summer storms in tornado warnings in Kansas, Adam, where we've got is it going to hail in Denver, and is it raining sideways and all that. That's all coming. But just remember, it's part of the risk, because a lot of times when you don't play the game, it goes off anyway, and then you get mad at yourself for that. So try to love one another and try to love yourself. All right, we've got Sampson going against Anderson here. I want the hitters. I do not want the pitchers. Am I missing anything with that basic assessment?
No, especially the ace hitters. Samson is awful, and the ball, like the A's have so much power. He doesn't miss bats. He gives up home runs. He gives up power. There's nothing not to like here. Is this on the DraftKings slate? Because I see it listed, but then I also don't see prices.
Let me
It
see.
is not.
Oh,
It looks like it's on the FanDuel slate. Maybe?
yeah, sorry. Oh, let me see. I have the all day. Or what am I doing?
It's not
Oh,
on the FanDuel main
it's
slate either.
yeah, weird. It's not on DK. Oh, you know what it is? This is that dumb Sunday thing where they tend to skip this game, and a lot of time it's the 3 o'clock game, and a lot of times it's either Texas or Colorado. I
Yeah.
remember them starting to do that more and more last year. It's a little different today because this is the lone 3 o'clock game, and then there are 5 4 o'clock games. So there's a pretty hefty 4 o'clock slate. But looking at this one, yeah, you're right, Adam. It's kind of fallen in the cracks because they don't have. Yahoo has the all day slate, but
Yeah.
Fantasy Draft does, but nobody else. In any
I
event,
was, I was going to say, good job by Yahoo to actually take advantage of how many games are on a Sunday.
that's right. Shout out for Yahoo. Yahoo used the promo code Awesome. We'll get $30 of Yahoo player points with your first $30 deposit. That is available for immediate use. Shout out to them for sponsoring the deep dive and the Life Before Lock weekday shows. Back to this one. Let's just hit it anyway, Adam, because it is a fun game. And you mentioned you really like going against Samson here. I he doesn't have a redeeming quality. I think he's more like a middle reliever, the long reliever that gets used, once a week to mop things up. But I want no part of him, and I don't think there's anybody I would be angry with if I didn't have in my lineup here from Oakland.
No, I mean the entire lineup has power outside of like Robbie Grossman, Semien, Chapman, Davis, Morales, Piscotty, Profar, Laureano, Fegley. These guys all are home run threats. Grossman's not an easy out because he doesn't strike out. He puts the ball in play. Walks a lot. It gets on base. It's 1 through 9. Get creative here. They're reasonably priced, and it's a really good spot. Like Samson's one of those guys where he's so bad that I actually like all of his stuff seems so bad that I expected him to like have success in the major leagues somehow, just because to get there he has to have something that like it doesn't show up on paper. But no, he's been really bad. Like he's been as bad as I expected.
All right, so I had a joke similar to that, and this is Prince Fielder. Obviously, most of you guys know who he is. His dad was Cecil Fielder. Cecil was even larger and less athletic towards the end of his career than Prince was, and I used to say he stole a base, and I swear to God, because he had would always the graphic would always be he hasn't stolen a base in 1,000 games or some ungodly number, and it was his second to last season or his last season, and all of a sudden he took off running from first, and the catcher was laughing so hard he had a shitty throw and he got a stolen base. So I was sort of like, that's kind of what you're saying about Samson. It's like, wait, this is really happening. We're not playing wiffle ball. He's throwing these to me.
It's like the Nick Margevicius rule. Like there's nothing redeeming. There's nothing that stands out when you look into him about how he's good, but he's in the major leagues, so there's probably something good about him. And so far, we've seen him, have some success, but that hasn't been the case with Samson.
Right. Okay. So that just hitting on the Texas side, we saw that Rougned Odor went on the DL. They've got a lot of righties here going against Anderson. Anderson ballpark helps him a lot depending on where he is, but going against this many righties I think is a dangerous spot here. I'm not intrigued by him at all, but I'm curious to see if Logan Forsythe, now that he's 2 teams removed from Tampa Bay, is regaining the magic going against lefties. Hunter Pence is batting cleanup, which he barely played last year when he was with the Giants. What do you like here from Texas? And we'll wrap up here.
Joey Gallo, as always. It's lefty, but he still has plenty of power. Anderson doesn't miss bats. I think Anderson's a good enough pitcher in terms of limiting damage that I'm not in love with Texas here, even though it is righty heavy, because the righties are just all pretty bad. Like Andrus, I think, is a good play. I already mentioned Gallo. If you're stacking, it's obviously a high upside spot because of the ballpark and the fact that they put the ball in play. But just much more excited to get the Oakland side here out, instead of Texas, other than one also with Gallo.
All right. Wanted to hit a couple of the matchups here on this 5-game late slate here. You've got Garrett Cole in a great spot against Seattle. You have the Oracle Park is looking magnificent today because we have your guy Herman Marquez, and we have Derek Holland, who is
Also, my guy.
intriguing. Oh, double special here from Adam. I mentioned it on the show yesterday. Last year, Colorado with their weighted runs created plus had an 87. So what that is it's an advanced metric that neutralizes ballpark factors, and it creates a league-wide baseline of 100. So their 87 means that they score or create runs 13% less efficiently than teams in very similar situations. But this takes out the Coors Field effect. It doesn't, it eliminates some of the other variables and noise to make it kind of a comparable teams comparable to each other. And they were 87. That was the 20th worst offense. The year prior, they still had an 87, and they were the third lowest in this category. They're getting a major park downgrade. They have not changed their team much, if at all, since last year, and this is a great spot for both your guys. Talk to me a little bit about Herman Marquez, because this lines up to be just a tremendous spot for him as well.
Give me all the pitching in this game.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if on this slate the majority of my lineups are just Marquez and Holland pairings. Obviously, a really, really good park for pitchers. It's two not very good offenses. It's two pitchers that I really believe in. Marquez, obviously, just an ace at this point. Started throwing his slider more last season and is just absolutely lights out. San Francisco lineup doesn't have much of anything that scares you. Brandon Belt scratched yesterday, questionable for today. He's their best hitter by a very, very, very wide margin. So, if he's out, it gets even better for Marquez. And the price tag's reasonable, less than $10,000. So really like him. And then on the other side, Derek Holland's price tag just isn't really moving. Like, he's still $6,900 on DraftKings. He made some significant strides last season, throwing his slider a lot more. Gets a lot of swings and misses. He benefits from pitching in San Francisco. It helps keep his home run rate down. And outside of Arenado's Story, and to some extent Desmond and Blackman, who doesn't have the platoon advantage here, there's no hitting in this Colorado lineup either. There's not a lot of swings and misses. Guys like Hampson, Fuentes, Daza, Tony Walters, none of them, have high strikeout rates or project for high strikeout rates. Blackman and Arenado are tough strikeouts, but they're also just not good hitters for the most part. They're in a bad park, and Holland has really been able to get swings and misses against even some tough matchups. Like you go back and look at that Dodgers game, and he was just piling up strikeouts against them, which is a tough team full of much better righties than Colorado has. So I just love both sides of the pitching here.
Yeah, absolutely. The other guys you can kind of go to would be Garrett Cole. Really, he's the only other guy I would consider. I love Marco Gonzalez, but he's more of a control guy than a strikeout guy, and that's not an easy lineup for him going against Houston. Eric Lauer, I think the roof is going to be closed, but and even though it is somewhat of a watered down lineup there without Paul Goldschmidt and AJ Pollock, not really interested in him. Stripling is intriguing, but what's the pitch count going to be? Does he make it much beyond the fifth inning or into the sixth inning? That's always a question when you have Dave Roberts. I think it's a trap to go to Yolis Chacin with him facing a fair number of lefties, most likely from the Dodgers lineup. And then rounding it out, don't forget that Michaelis and Anthony Desclafani, that game's at 1,700 feet elevation there in Monterrey, Mexico. So really, this is a 10. There's 10 starting pitchers on the slate. I think we can distill it to 3, and I feel like this is one, Adam, where I'm willing to just go heavily concentrated on those pitchers and then let the batters be my differentiation. And I wanted to call that out because there's not a lot of slates that have shaped up just like this. Usually we're like, okay, here's the offenses I want, and hopefully I can connect on two pitchers that aren't getting their ass kicked. This is the other way. I really like those top 3 pitchers we talked about.
Yeah, and this slate's weird too, and it's one where I would want to spread out my offensive exposure and be more concentrated on pitching, because while I clearly think that Marquez and Holland are my top 2 pitching plays, and Cole's a really good pitcher as well, none of the pitchers outside of, maybe the Mexico game are really like gas cans either. Like I'm not looking at any of these offenses like, oh man, I just want, 100 stacks of, the Brewers or the Dodgers or whatever. Like Stripling's a good pitcher. Chacin's okay. Gonzalez is okay. Greinke, Lauer are both fine. So it's a spot where I would like to just spread out my hitting exposure as much as I can and be concentrated on pitching.
All right. With that, we're going to get on out of here. Give you a little bit of a bonus, but still, we managed to get through an entire slate in 45 minutes, Adam. Not bad. Not bad at all. Reminder, you've got 10 minutes until the all-day NHL slate locks. We do have content behind the paywall for that. The rest of their games don't go off till 7 tonight. You've got basketball locking at 1. There's a couple afternoon games, and then there are a couple evening games. So that's a sort of an all-day look. And then you got baseball everywhere. So with that, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS on Twitter. I am at EMACDFS on Twitter. And of course, it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.